All right, guys, so here we are with day number 2 recap. And as you can see on your screen there, the highlighted day is a red day once again, sadly. I finished with an even worse result, which is somewhat funny given how I closed the recap on day number 1, where I said all I have to do is do better than today. And what I meant by that was not P&L, it was just to not make the hotkey mistakes that I made on day number 1. And everything there was sorted. However, on day 2, I did take 2 maximum losses on the 2 trades that I took. And as a result, I ended up closing the day. Now, quick note before I begin is that this is actually taking place. I'm writing this recap right now on Thursday. I had 2 days of trouble with my screen recording software where I couldn't render the video. And anyway, long story short, it turns out I needed an update, and that's all fixed now. So I'm doing this in retrospect, which means my memory is not going to be super fresh on the trades themselves. However, that's not a big deal because most of what I want to talk about today is a little bit bigger scope. It's a realization that I made during this day on day 2, and I think that's a lot more important than my trade. So that's mainly what I'm going to be talking about today in the recap. So first we're going to run through the trades that I did take on this day, which are highlighted there. And the first one took place, I think, 9:33 or something. Yeah, my entry was at 9:33 a.m., which is not something I normally do. I don't normally get in before, the first 5 minutes are over, before there's some chart developed. And we're going to get back to why I might have done that in a minute. I'm just going to get through the trades first. So I took a 250 share starter at 586, looking to get into a halt, which the level at that time was around 606 or 604. So there was only about 20 cents left to go. And there was a seller at 586 or 585 rather on the level 2. And so I thought once that breaks, we're probably going to get a quick squeeze up into the halt, at which point I'll take another 125 shares at the halt level, looking for perhaps a 15-20 cent gap through the halt, and then selling pretty quickly thereafter. Now what happened instead is it retraced all the way back down to my intended stop, which was 550, and then came back up. And there was a moment at 590 where sellers started stacking up, and I felt, no, this isn't going to work. I needed to get a quick squeeze. It needed to take maybe 10 seconds to get into that halt, and it didn't. And so it ended up being a 3-minute hold, and as you can see, I did stop out below my max stop at 550, and so I took a much bigger loss than I may have otherwise taken. And then the next one was on ACTC, which was one of my primary watches coming into the day. And it's one that I got distracted away from shortly after the open. And that had a bit to do with my trade on CAPR right here. Is I was mainly paying attention to this, and then I noticed that ACTC had suddenly squeezed up and halted. And so this trade was a halt resumption trade, where I tried to buy a dip with a very wide stop, of course, on a stock like this, especially one that's just been halted. You have to have a really wide stop. I have no problem with my dollar stop. That's why I adjusted my share size to 50. However, once again, this one went into the green and then came back down red. And I think my stop out is another sign of the lack of discipline that preceded this day, which I'll get to in a moment, because my stop was 21.50, and as you can see, my exit was premature. I did not wait for the break, and even though that break did take place and I would have just stopped out in the 40s or whatever, I do think it's relevant that I was not sharp enough to see the break and notice that I didn't actually hit my stop and that it could have bounced up from there. Now, the most important part of this day took place before the market opened, before I took any of the trades, and that was a disciplined failure. On this day, on Tuesday, whatever it was, the 12th, I let myself trade in a situation where I should have not, according to my rules. So I woke up on time, very early in fact, and I got a lot of things done, and I kind of screwed around. There was a period when I was eating, and I started watching like a video for 15 minutes or whatever while I ate, and that really broke my focus. And because my focus was broken, I didn't get around to completing the most important elements of my checklist, which I know I haven't got into it yet, but on there, really important, is eating correctly, eating a certain type of breakfast, which I have listed and I'll get to in another video. And then also exercise. I do some weightlifting and some push-ups in the morning because I hate both of those activities. And having something in my routine that I don't like is a really important part of how I maintain discipline. And what actually happened is that I didn't do those things, and I realized the clock was ticking. We're almost at the open. I got to get ready. And I made excuses for myself. I said, okay, well, I don't plan on trading the open, so maybe I can just lift some weights while I watch, the charts, and I'll have 4 charts up and just be watching and try to spot the opportunity, and I can make up my routine then. And this is a very slippery slope. This is something I should not have allowed myself to do, and I did anyway. Now, I don't necessarily consider these trades to be undisciplined trades, although there has been a pattern that has developed in just the 3 trades that I intended to take, even though there's 4 listed. The 3 trades that I had planned on taking in this account so far were all fitting within a certain pattern, and that's a scalper mentality. So I realized after this day was closed, I realized, holy shit, like I'm still trading as if I have a $20,000, $30,000 account, and I can afford to take, these random losses and just make it up. And that isn't the case here. And so I had a little bit of a deja vu back to almost exactly this time last year, where I had a much smaller account with no money behind whatsoever. I started with less than $1,600, and I had nothing in the bank to back it up. It was just going to be that $1,600. And in the first couple of days of that account, I dropped close to $400 in like 6 days or something. And I found myself in a spot where I'm like, damn, I actually can't afford to take many more losses here. I have to make a change now, and I have to make sure it's the right change. And as you know from my account history video, that account turned into the biggest winner that I've had, closed in the 40,000s, and everything went well from there. And the way that I achieved that was to stop trading every day. It was really being a lot more picky about the stocks and being very much in tune with the attitude of the market. And so that's the realization that I had on day 2, was that, wait a minute, like, why am I expecting these things to resolve so cleanly? Even the days that I was paying attention throughout the holidays, I saw a lot of pre-market gappers just fade at the open and have really choppy action and not really great resolution. And I think the thing that kind of clouded my vision there was there were a couple of big runners. I forget what it was, what the stock was, but on December 28th, there was a parabolic move, a vertical move that was like $5 to $40 or something like that. And I took that as a sign of, okay, here comes market momentum. And even though I took that as here comes this market momentum, I didn't see it. So I expected it to happen, but it never came. And I just expected it to be there anyway. And so when I look at the trades that I took, even though these are both mistakes, they were supposed to be one long trade. But that trade would have failed as well. That's important. These are all high of day breakouts. These are all very fast moving stocks. And I realized, wait a minute, I even called it in my preview for this account where I said, this is what I plan on doing and whatever. I said I'm a little bit worried that my hyperactive personality in the way that I normally trade with a bigger account is going to be interfering with what I actually have to do. And I do feel that's what happened so far. And to suffer a discipline failure on day number 2, that certainly doesn't help things. Not eating properly on this day, maybe if I had eaten properly, I would have closed both these trades green and realized that they weren't going to work out. Because even though I don't necessarily think that I should have closed them at the time that I'm thinking about it, I don't necessarily think that would have been the right idea. I do think that it would have been okay, it would have been excusable to take a really small win and give up the profit that I might have made if it ran. I think once I'm uncomfortable with the situation, and I don't think it's the right setup for my situation, which was kind of the sentiment I had in both these trades, I feel that it's okay to close. And both of them were green, and they both stopped out in the max loss. And so I think this result is a combination a little bit of partly my lack of discipline. In the morning, I failed the checklist, and I still let myself trade. That's a big no-no. And on top of that, I didn't eat very well, so I wasn't all that mentally sharp either. And those two things combined, I think, really helped me realize that I'm approaching this with a little bit too much comfort. And also that even though, this is my 4th account that I opened with a small balance inside of a 12-month period, a rolling 12-month period. And you'd think that experience would make me used to doing this, and yet every time it seems like I forget what it's like to start fresh. And this, looking at my progress or lack thereof so far, I feel like, yeah, you absolutely are trading like a guy with a big account who can afford to take these big losses and just keep moving on. And that isn't the case. I have to be a sniper right now. I have to be laying in wait and be a lot more patient and a lot more picky about the stocks that I'm trading and when I'm trading them as well. Now, as we switch over to my broker screen here, I'll point out that a couple things actually. First, on my daily results, you'll notice on the far right-hand side, there's the offset column, and this is probably going to contain a figure every single day in this account. And the reason for this is because Interactive Brokers is a multi-currency broker, which means they don't convert, or your money is not converted initially. With a lot of brokers, you send in whatever currency, it gets converted to the currency of the broker, which is generally going to be USD. And then you trade with that USD from there. And then when you withdraw it, you reconvert it to whatever you want. This is not the case. I have live Canadian funds, and because they're getting exchanged on a daily basis, there is going to be some fluctuation in the balance. So you can see that after day two, I was projected to close at or open the next day at $2,554.26, and I actually opened almost $15 higher because of that exchange. And the other thing I want to say is about yesterday, Wednesday, where I also had, a not great morning where I didn't really get all the things done. I wasn't ready. And on top of that, I wasn't super impressed with the scans. And as a result, I closed before the open. I decided, nope, I'm not going to repeat the mistake of yesterday. I'm just going to observe. I'm going to see what I can learn about how things are reacting to moves, how people are, pushing them further or shutting them down. And I felt like I made the right decision yesterday. There wasn't too much that I would have jumped on that I think that I really missed out on. And then today, everything went great. I woke up, felt great. I made a big point of getting all my stuff done early. I think it was like 8:45 by the time I was 100% ready. And, my last second research didn't really take that long. So today I was ready and willing to trade. You can see I have a pretty extensive watch list here. And none of it really panned out. There was only one move all day that I actually hit the buy button for, and that was from this candle right here at 9:45. I'll get the 1 minute chart hooked up. I think this was the move. Nope, hold on. Yeah, right here. So there was a move early on DTSS, which I didn't really like. This ramp up right here, I wasn't super impressed by, but I thought if we can base out, make a lower high, and then push up from there, it looks good. And also, another thing that I realized over the last couple of days is I'm focused way too much on the 1 minute chart, which again is a very scalp mentality thing to do. When you're a scalper, the 1 minute chart is a big deal. But I don't want to be, trading these super high time frames or super short time frames because I can't afford to take the flash losses that sometimes happen. And so I was focused on the 5 minute chart today correctly. And the one spot that I thought, okay, here's a good entry was bouncing off this 338, 337 level where there was a decent seller. And I thought, okay, if I buy above 353 and then just kind of hold looking for an eventual break of 4, or I could stop out at 390 in the profit zone where there was a seller that I wasn't sure would break. And so I did punch the buy key. And my offset on my buy was not big enough, and I got filled 0 shares and didn't end up taking the trade at all. I didn't chase it. As you can see on the 1 minute up here, it did resolve pretty quickly. That was kind of a fast spike. And then the rest of the movement that followed, as you can see, is pretty choppy. It did move up all the way up to 440, but it was very choppy. And that's about the time when I closed the day. There were a couple other things I was looking at. I don't remember everything. I think CNET might have been one of them. No. In any case, there were a couple things that I looked at today, but I wasn't happy with any of them. And the one thing I am happy with is that even though I missed this move, this was the move of the day. I mean, this is the biggest gainer on the list right now. And I saw it and predicted it down here at 353. So all this to say that I am pretty satisfied with the changes that I made since day 2 over the last couple of days. I obviously wasn't happy with my discipline fail, especially not on day number 2. But it's better to get that stuff out of the way early, remind myself, what style is most appropriate for this account at this stage. And I feel like realizing that I was making a mistake after only 3 trades is not bad. It could have been worse. So all this is to say that I'm not disappointed in the result in terms of money or ROE. That to me is perfectly acceptable for an account of this size. What I am very disappointed about on day 2 is indeed the lack of discipline, the failing my own rules, breaking my own rules. I mean, that's not something you can do, and I worked so hard to, get into disciplinary shape, and then here I go and blow it up on day number 2. So I definitely don't want that trend to continue. What I'm looking for going forward more than anything is what made it for me in that account this time that last year when I was having a lot of trouble early on. The way that I adjusted was I waited for the really big moves, let's say like $4 to $5, and then I would only try to capture maybe 20 cents of that move. And that's basically how I dug myself out of that hole last year. And that's not what I did in the account that I blew up. So looking back at those two accounts, I think like I got a decent kind of reminder of what I'm supposed to do right now. And for me, it's look for the big move and just try to capture a small percentage of it, get that cushion going. And then once the balance gets bigger, we can start getting into the active scalping and the 7, 10 trades a day and stuff like that.